several refreshes. Several refreshes. All right, looks like we are live.
Yay.
Will do. All right. Welcome everyone to the 11th episode of the Lucky Charm podcast. And of course, I am joined here by special guest G, aka the Cartoon Hotspot, for another episode.
Hi, everyone.
All right, and our topic of discussion today is parental relationships in Miraculous. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't realize, how important parental relationships are in Miraculous. So I feel like this is like an interesting topic to discuss. So, let's start with Marinette's parents because obviously we see them probably the most out of all the other parents in Miraculous. But I want to know your thoughts, G, on on Sabine and Tom's like relationship.
So, as in Sabine and Tom's relationship with Marinette, or just
Yes.
their relationship in general. Okay. So, I think out of every parental relationship that we are shown in Miraculous Ladybug, I do think Sabine and Tom are the healthiest depiction of parental love in Miraculous Ladybug, which is kind of saying a lot, because we know like many of the characters in the show don't really have the best relationship with their parents. Now, Sabine and Tom aren't without their flaws.
Hmm.
I have many gripes with Sabine and Tom, and I think gripes, those gripes are quite universal, especially in season 4, which we'll get into later on. But I absolutely just love how present they are to an
Hmm.
extent in Marinette's life and how supportive they are of her. She seems very open with her parents, with the exception of, you know, being able to tell them her superhero identity. But overall, she is very, very open with her parents, and her parents have never once kind of shunned her away. And it's never been a case where she wasn't able to come to her parents about something. For example, when it came to Heroes Day, she told her parents straight away that she told her class that she was going to be able to make an entire picnic. And instead of, scolding her or chastising her, they told her just, tell the truth. So I think that was a great example of them. Another thing that I really liked is back in season 1, when they found out Marinette has been like turning up late to class, being absent from certain classes. I think that was a really great depiction that, oh, okay, they are very present. They're very aware that there are some days that Marinette just isn't in class for no reason. And as rational and normal parents, they would flag this and raise this up with her. Because yes, Marinette is a superhero, so there are going to be classes she misses. But I feel
Hmm.
like later on in the series, they could just kind of, forget that she is a teenager, as in like the show forgets that she's a teenager. So we don't really see her getting in trouble for things that teenagers get in trouble for. So
Hmm.
it felt really nice to kind of have them, I guess, not punish her, but, be parents.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel it's like I do agree they are like the healthiest, you know. And it's good because like the fact is that like Tom runs a bakery, and Sabine, his wife, like helps him, but they're always at least present in their daughter's life, which is a good thing because you gotta have work-life balance, you know. And the fact that Adrian, I forgot which episode it was, as Cat Noir, he looks at the photos of like Marinette and her parents, and he's like in admiration that like, wow, she has such a great parental relationship with her parents, and that's
Right.
something Adrian was like lacking from his dad, obviously, and and it really shows that like, yeah, it's a very great positive example of um like Marinette's parents may be busy because, running a bakery, yeah, you got to put all your time and effort into that. But the fact that both Tom and Sabine always find time for Marinette, I think is just they showcase some great work-life balance. Because there's like some parents out there that just don't know how to balance that. They don't know how to balance between, work and being a parent and being parent or parents to their child, right? But here in the show, they actually showcase like a healthy like relationship, and and I think I think it's really great that Marinette has like great relationship with both of her parents. Like I think it was like mentioned in I think it was like in one of her diary things, that audio thing that they released like several years ago. Um
Yes, on YouTube.
and Marinette's like talking about her parents like, I wonder who I'm more like, right? Like she actually like I was like, I know like in terms of like being a fighter, she does get that from her mom, obviously, and she's like, my dad, I get this. And it's like she's like, I'm like a great like mix between the two, and Marinette talks about how like I hope one day I get to have, like Marinette has a really great like positive example of what a healthy relationship is, which is a good thing, because when when a couple, becomes parents, you have to be the most positive example to your child,
Right.
and Marinette gets that with her parents because she's like, wow, my parents have this really great relationship in your marriage. Like, and she's like, I want to have something like that, which is a good thing, even though her methods are very, very questionable. But she has like a positive influence because of her parents. And, and currently, as we know, for those who have started watching season 6, Marinette and Adrian are at least having a bit of like some positivity in their relationship, you know and you could say they're like learning from each other, but at the same time, because of Marinette's like aspect of, oh, like my parents have this really positive and healthy relationship, I want to have that. And that's what children should aspire, right? When you're looking in for a partner, you don't want like you don't want any like abusive or toxic partner. You want someone that will help you grow as a person, and literally Tom and Sabine do that when you think about it. Like like I think there's like some instances in some episodes where like Sabine, I think it was like Where Dad, or is it, yeah, Where Dad, um or something like that, and like Sabine is like telling him, hey, like our daughter can handle this, you know and she's trying to tell him, hey, don't get like don't be so hard on yourself, it's like, oh, like Marinette can handle this, but obviously Tom didn't want to listen because he was like being the protective father that he is. But that's why every time I see Tom and Sabine on screen, it's like, wow, I just love their chemistry. They have like this positive influence on their daughter, you know um and basically just showcasing every day to her, this is how a couple should be. We're partners, we work together, and their positive influence has like at least like helped Marinette at least, hopefully she can get into more healthier aspects in her relationship with Adrian, hopefully.
Absolutely.
Because to my knowledge, I don't think Marinette's mom ever did the weird stalking thing. So I'm kind of like, I hope she like grows out of that, because I'm like, oh girl, you don't really need to do that anymore. You're canonically dating him.
No, I absolutely agree. But I think that goes without saying that, yes, Tom and Sabine are a great influence in Marinette's life, but they do have their shortcomings as well.
Mhm.
Especially, and I think this is the biggest one that the entire fandom can agree on, is that were they not aware that Marinette was being bullied relentlessly by Chloe
Mm,
for 4 years straight? Because
mhm,
it, as a parent, you become very, or you should become very hyper aware of your kid's feeling. So
Mm,
in the Origins episode, it's actually Sabine we meet first. And
mhm,
then in part two, I think we meet Tom.
mhm,
Um, and when Marinette is like, ugh, Chloe's going to be in my class. And I think it's Sabine that goes for 4 years in a row. But Marinette expresses how not excited she is for school to the point where she's generally very, very pessimistic towards it. And
mhm,
as a parent, well, I'm not a parent, but if I were, as a parent, that would be raising like red flags in my mind because, okay, like, yeah, school is probably not the best place. Nobody really is excited to go to school except for the odd person, whatever. But
mm,
like the first ever day and you really, really don't want to go to school. And it's worse when you watch Derision as well, even
mhm,
though many people have many and valid gripes with that episode.
mhm,
It becomes blaringly obvious that Marinette is extremely unhappy in school to the point where she's trying. I don't know if I'm making this up because I haven't watched the episode in a long while, but to the point where she's trying to get out of going to school, I think. Um, so I'm just like, okay, as a parent, if my child is really, really adamant on avoiding a specific place, especially school is supposed to be a place, a safe space for children to grow
mhm,
and learn and, cultivate friendships and everything. But Marinette was constantly isolated, like, apart from one friend she had, which was so clean.
mhm,
So clean, yeah. I definitely would have been questioning why, like, what's going on with Marinette and why she's extremely unhappy. Because I don't think Marinette is somebody that can very well hide her emotions compared to Adrian or other
mhm,
people. I think it's very obvious when Marinette is upset, and Sabine is very emotionally intelligent. I think out of the two parents, she's the more calmer and emotionally intelligent person. So I think I
mhm,
would have, realized if I was to be like, oh, my daughter's unhappy. And also in season four, when Marinette was like super depressed because her title as guardian was taking a toll on her mental health. They did sort of raise it and wonder like what's going on, but I don't think they really pressed on as much as I would expect a normal parent to question, you know?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one because like I totally get it. Like people have gripes with derision, which I don't blame
Mhm.
them. Like, but at the same time, it's like it does give us some like background of like, wow, this it's like, yeah, Marinette is obviously just like she doesn't even feel safe at school and the fact that literally like so Colleen said, Marinette, I promised your mom that I keep an eye on you. So like I think that line of dialogue shows us, as you said, that Sabine is more emotionally intelligent than her husband, and she's like, yeah, it's like I better have like someone keep an eye on her, like because we don't know the extent of how much she was hiding it, but it's pretty obvious Marinette like talks to her mom more about the bullying, I guess. You so I think with that, because I think, with Tom, as we've seen, he could probably overreact,
Yeah.
so I think maybe that's my Marinette goes to her mom because her mom is more emotionally intelligent and will take it with like calmness and then will try to give you advice, at least. Um then because when you think about it, like like don't get me wrong, this show can really exaggerate because like in real life you really should be reporting the bullying to the principal, but this principal has like no backbone. Like he really doesn't because like literally like even if Marinette did tell the principal, he is scared of Chloe because Chloe's dad is the mayor, and she has that influence over her dad, you know. So it's like Chloe can just like tell and like bend her dad to her will. It's like, oh, that's like if and when you think about it, like realistically, yeah, Chloe can get in trouble with bullying, you know. But like I said, this show is just like over exaggerated. And like I said, this principal has like no backbone to like stand up and like and actually discipline her and punish her, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm kind of like, man, this principal has like no backbone. I'm like, why are you? I'm kind of like, it's like I totally get it, but at the same time, it's like, she's technically still a minor, so her like you could just tell her dad to like discipline her, like, but like I said, that's not in the logic of the show.
But
Which,
also, but yeah, you're right, because it's not in the logic of the show, but at the same time, it kind of contradicts. I know we're
mm,
going on in a bit of a tangent, but I just realized, and I think it's after watching one of Smarty Pants' videos. Technically, the mayor doesn't have control over who gets to fire who in schools. That's the school board, like the general of education, because there's
mm,
separate boards for separate, I guess, departments or whatever within the government. So
mhm,
the mayor constantly threatening Principal Damocles,
mhm.
technically that would not happen in real life. And the
Yeah.
mayor can get in so much trouble for that because he doesn't oversee, the schools. He can threaten them, yeah, but I don't think it's to the point where Principal Damocles should be extremely worried because he should know as a principal, the mayor and the Department of Education is actually separate. So his threats are
Mhm,
basically empty.
mhm. Yeah, and I feel like the principal like fails at his job because it's
He
like
does.
as a principal, like if one of your students, if one student is like bullying another, you really should be having a talk with those two students, especially with the one who's the actual bully, and say, hey, that's not cool, like, but the fact is that I guess this principal's so dumb, like you said, that like the mayor has like no power over him, but he takes it as like, oh, this is the mayor of Paris. I'm like, dude, do you not know how the education system works? Or like it because it's just so sad, like I said, that like Marinette, like I said, she doesn't go to her dad about the bullying, like it's more towards her mom because her mom is well aware, obviously. Um and and everything. So I think with I think maybe like Marinette feels like, oh, like I have a feeling my father is going to overreact, which he shouldn't, because it's like you have to take it with a more level head and be more a logical thinker, a critical thinker, you know. So and that's what Sabine is. Like she is like the other half that Tom needs, like someone that's like the voice of reason, someone
Right.
someone who won't impulsively like just go at the principal or something or anything like that. But yeah, I feel like Tom and Sabine really balance each other out because of that, Um, because obviously we know where Marinette gets like her impulsiveness, obviously from her dad, you
Yes.
know. And then when she's like, Ladybug, or when she's actually learning to do logical thinking rather than rushing into, without fully knowing, she gets more of her critical thinking than logical thinking, and like emotional intelligence from her mom, you know. So I think, like Marinette like realizes, yeah, it's like I don't like, yeah, she still does it from time to time, don't get me wrong, with the impulsiveness, but she learns to at least learn to balance it because she's like, oh, this is what happens when you actually like let your impulsiveness and recklessness get in the way,
Yeah.
But yeah, like Tom and Sabine are like such a great example. At least, for the most part, they are healthy. But as you said, I kind of feel like their movie counterparts are a lot more like they are a lot more involved, and obviously, at of course, Marinette, like movie Marinette, she has a different like, and she's kind of like, oh, a lot of people. I don't know if people are gonna like me. I don't know if I'm gonna make friends, And then like literally, like her dad's like, you know what? I'll just like drop you off at school, right? Like, it's
Mm.
just like, no, 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 don't do that. And then her mom obviously can tell that like, oh no, it's like, oh no, my husband's gonna embarrass her. And then she's like, Tom, I think there's something burning in the oven, just to get him to back off. So at least, I kind of like how Sabine, like, hey, it's like you're kind of like you're kind of like um crossing her boundaries, and I like that Sabine does that, just from like interaction like that, like she understands boundaries, you know. I have to say what I love, especially I think it's like Dearest Family episode. Like remember how like Tom's parents, like Marinette's paternal grandparents, and Tom and Sabine are like talking, and then like Gina decides it's a great idea to gift a 13-year-old with a motorcycle. For whatever reason, because like you do realize she's not even of age to drive that thing. So but that's besides the point. Like literally you hear you hear like the paternal grandfather Roland, he's like, it's like, he's very traditional, and it's like, yeah, Marinette is not supposed to be driving stuff like that, she's not even old enough, which is understandable. And then Tom's like, that's right, I don't want my little girl to get hurt, you know? Yeah, because you got to be careful with motorcycles. And then Gina's like, well, you got to realize she's not a little girl. And then, like, Sabine, being the voice of reason, is like, come now, it's like, she's like, Marin is like, we have to understand how Marinette feels about this. She is the one putting her daughter's well being over their opinions, if you know what I mean. And I really love how like Sabine's like, we have to learn to respect her boundaries. We have to
Yes.
understand we have to understand how she feels about it, right? And then of course that's because of their arguing, that's how they get akumatized. But literally, like, even when they're akumatized, they're still arguing. And then like Sabine says this one line, even when she's akumatized, she's like, Marinette doesn't belong to anyone. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, this is interesting. But it's still showing that like, hey, it's Marinette's decision at the end of the day, and she understands. It's like, I get it, you guys have your own opinions on what you feel is best for Marinette, but we have to understand how the child herself feels about it, right? And literally, Marinette was like ignorant to it, because like obviously the side stories that Tiki decides Tiki has like a sugar rush, obviously in that episode, and Marinette kind of was like unaware,
Yeah.
like like trying to catch Tiki because otherwise Tiki would be exposed, and then they're just like arguing in the background, and I'm just like, uh, and and like I said, Sabine just shows that, as you said, has great emotional intelligence, and the fact that she literally says, at the end of the day, it's like all four of us want what's best for her, but we need to understand how she feels about it, and at the end of the day, that's usually the child's choice. It's like, yeah, it's like Sabine understands their like perspectives, but it's like at the same time, at the end of the day, it's Marinette's choice. And because of that, like at least Marinette, like, because Sabine sees how much her daughter is like evolving, right? Because remember Marinette at the beginning, she's kind of like, she didn't really know how to stand up for herself. It's hard for her to say what she feels, but Sabine is well aware that her daughter is like changing and like growing up, and she's like, I think she can say how she feels now, like, I don't have to, like, like, she's well aware. Like, I have to like give applause to Sabine. Like, she's just very, like, she shows what a mother should be, like she loves her daughter, gives her advice, but also be the voice of reason, you know, when Marinette needs it, And I just love how like Marinette just goes to her mom for like the emotional intelligence, you know,
Yeah.
and everything. But But I kind of like also that like Tom's relationship with Marinette. It's like it's good to be protective of your daughter. That happens in real life, you know? That shows you are a good parent, that you want to like shield her, but at the same time, he's kind of like trying to coddle her like she's still a little girl, you know? And I kind of like how Sabine's like, "Hey man, it's like you need to give her some space, let her be independent, because yeah, she's not a little girl anymore, so it's like if you coddle her too much, she's going to be sheltered too much." And I like how Sabine's like teaching him that we need to give her the space to like grow as a person, and and not like coddle her, because otherwise you're going to end up with like a child that's like too reliant on the parents, right? If they're so used to it. So Sabine kind of teaches him that, and that's what I love about Sabine.
No, I 100% agree as well. But I also like how Tom also brings out Marinette's like child childlikeness. I mean, yeah, Marinette still is pretty much a child, a teen, give or take. But
Hmm.
I think one thing that I noted is that she would always play video games with her dad.
Hmm.
And someone made a headcanon that Marinette is very heavily ADHD, and people and kids with ADHD are very, very good with, well, some of them, not all of them, of course. Some of them are really good with playing video games because it helps them with concentration and like other skills. I'd have to pull up the Tumblr blog or the thread. It was made a while ago, but I really
Oh.
do like the headcanon that like, oh, because a lot of people have theorized or speculated, even including therapists as well who watch the show and enjoy the show, have speculated that Marinette might, be might have ADHD, and so when her dad plays video games with her, I just find that very endearing, because yeah, she loves her dad a lot, and yeah, she goes to her mom about a lot of things, whether it's boy troubles or school troubles or whatever. But there is this sort of like innocent and childlikeness when she's with her dad.
Very interesting. I did not catch that. That's an interesting, like, that's an interesting observation. I did not know that. I would love to see like this, like, is it like Tumblr post you said?
Yeah, I think it's a Tumblr post, and I saw it a couple of years ago. So about 2 years ago when when season 4 came out, or that was actually 3 years ago. Wow, time flies. Um, but it stuck with me for like so long because I was like, wow, like also didn't catch that as well. Like, yeah, I kind of suspected that Marinette might have ADHD. Just
Mhm.
judging by the way she acts, especially season 1 and 2. I don't think it's as obvious as it is in like the later seasons. But when she's doing things, it's like it's quite obvious in season 1. So yeah, that was a very interesting take, and it made me appreciate Tom even more. And that's probably why he's very overprotective as well. Whereas with Sabine, she understands like you cannot shelter this girl forever because like most likely one parent tends to want to protect the kid with ADHD or some sort of learning disability, and the other understands like they are going to struggle, they're going to come go through challenges, but we have to trust that they will be able to face that. Which is why when you bring up the movie depictions of Tom and Sabine, I think I like their depictions a lot more,
Mhm.
especially with Tom
Mhm.
wanting to, drop her off at school, which is an innocent thing for a parent to want to do, especially on
Mhm.
their first day of school. And also
Yeah.
when he follows her to the carnival, that was a
Mhm.
bit over the top. But again, it's Miraculous Ladybug, so things are exaggerated for, you know, the sake of it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just really like Tom and Sabine's depiction in the movie, especially.
Yeah, like I'm not sure if you remember, there was like a deleted scene from the movie before, when Marinette is actually getting ready for her first day of school. And then you see, I think it's still like in like storyboard version, or kind of like light, like CGI, like the in
Hmm.
progress of it. And then like Tom's like, And he shows Sabine, oh, I was like, maybe I should bring this to school. And then Sabine's like, she looks at him like weird, like it's like she doesn't need to buy friends. Like she's gonna think that she can't do it by herself. I'm like, and I'm like, I was clapping my hands at that scene. I said, "Way to go, Sabine." I'm like, Tom, you're doing too much. um, and it's like little stuff like that. Like I kind of like how Sabine can be straight with him. It's like, this is not a good idea. you know, and I kind of like that, like because I kind of feel like movie version of Sabine, she can be more straight with Tom.
Mm.
Like it's like a huge difference. Like yeah, sure you see it in the TV show, but like in the movie it is a lot more apparent that she is just like straight with them. It's like this is a bad idea. It's like Marinette, like she understands that her daughter's like, I don't want your guys' help. I want to do it myself, right? Which is a good thing because Marinette does not want to rely on her parents to like be her crutch, right? To like make friends at school. It's like, yeah, when if you want to make friends at school, that's up to the child themselves to make the effort to do that. Like you can't rely on your parents to do that, because obviously your parents are gonna like sugarcoat everything and say, "Oh, my daughter's the greatest kid in the world," right? Like they'll exaggerate and say that you're great when it's like, leave that to the kids' judgment to see how they, but I love that Tom actually at least wanted to like drop her off at school because that's what some parents do in real life, you know, which is understandable. Like literally my dad did that for me on my first day of school, and I always appreciated it. um but what do you think is like Tom's greatest strength in his relationship with Sabine? G, I'm very curious on your thoughts.
Tom's greatest strength in his relationship with me. Um, I think the fact that and I think we've only seen this once or maybe twice, but I genuinely can't remember because I've been rewatching Miraculous lately, so I'm currently only rewatching. I've only rewatched season 1 and season 2. But I think his greatest strength, from what I've seen rewatched so far, is how quick he swoops in at her defense, particularly that episode, um, Troublemaker,
Mm,
where Jagged Stone's assistant, Penny, gets akumatized, and she's invisible, whatever. And um, she's like, toying with all of them in the bakery. And Sabine thinks that one of the producers or the camera guys or whatever, or Bob Ross, has, inappropriately touched her or something. That's,
mhm,
was very strange and very funny. And so she gets angry, and then Tom immediately goes, "Are you accusing my wife of lying?" or something along those lines. So he immediately goes to her defense. Also, when Marinette is upset, he's like, "We're not comfortable with your cameras around here," blah blah blah.
mhm.
So I think I like that. Like, yes, Tom could be very irrational, but I think he shines when he really shines.
Yeah, because you could say that like he can be irrational, but it's with good intentions though. Like I kind of feel like that's the best way to word it. Cause like, yeah, like Tom shows like a positive example of how a man should protect his family, right? Which is a good thing. But at the same time, he can be reckless and impulsive, which is why Sabine being more the voice of reason, it's like, hey, let's get to the bottom of it first before we start judging, So, but yeah, like I think Tom's greatest strength is just like you said, like he loves his wife and his daughter, and the fact is he trusts the it's like, wait, are you like calling my wife
Yeah.
It's just like very, very interesting, with their relationship. And like I said, like I love how they are a positive, like um positive example for Marinette, you know. And 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 what's really cool about Marinette's parents is that, like, they are the type that actually gets to know Marinette's friends. Like, in that, I think it's that, like, animation short they released on YouTube on the Miraculous page, where, like, literally you see Marinette helping her parents, right, make the macaroons. Um, and then, like, literally, like, they always appreciate the help, and they actually get to know Marinette's friends. And of course, a great example of this also is literally, like, I think it was, what was it? Daddy Cop. Remember how the girls have, like, what do you call it? They have, like, movie night every first Wednesday of the month or something like that. Um, like, they actually allow that. They allow it in their house. Like, they're very open to, like, letting Marinette hang out with her friends and her friends coming over, and that's a good thing, you know. It's always good to at least get to know your child's friends too. And like, Marinette has, like, the the greatest gift and freedom to have her friends over, because obviously with Adrian, before the end of season 5, he was always, like, stuck at home, couldn't even have friends at the house, even though his house is very spacious, but it was always under the watchful eye of his dad. And he's like, like, Adrian really had it bad, you know. Um, but since we have but any other thoughts about Tom and Sabine before we move on to the next parents parental
Yeah,
relationship?
the final thing is not anything that I we haven't talked about already, but I think another moment that I really, really, really enjoyed from Tom and Sabine, um, moments where I feel like it was we should have seen more of that in the earlier seasons, especially with the bullying and whatever. But I'm glad we are seeing this now in season 6. For anyone that hasn't seen season 6, just light spoilers. But when Vincent was basically harassing Marinette and Adrian, particularly Marinette, and spreading
Mhm.
lies about her, and Marinette is like, "Oh, me and Adrian are just going to meet up with him and talk with him," and immediately Tom and Sabine are like, "No, this guy is a grown man
Mm.
um, who has been harassing you relentlessly on the internet. I don't think it's wise, nor is it safe for you to visit this person. So we will have an adult figure there." And Tom volunteers to go with Adrian and Marinette, and obviously the gorilla is Adrian's guardian figure or whatever. So I think I really appreciated that moment a lot. Them
Mhm.
acknowledging that they are still minors, as mature
Yeah.
as they are still minors, and they are dealing with a grown adult
Mhm.
who would know how to twist and manipulate them and potentially harm them even more. So, no, I'm not sending my 14-year-old daughter to meet some random man on the internet.
Yeah.
If she does want to do that, then I will accompany her, and I think I really appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cuz realistically, yeah, you should never ever do that, especially when your child is a minor and a teenager. Absolutely not. Like, I get it cuz it's miraculous and it's a cartoon and it kind of goes against the logic of reality, but at the same time, yeah, I appreciate that. Cuz, like, I don't know, I don't know what Marinette. I was like, girl, are you, like, naive? Like, literally all you tells her straight up, this guy is making up lies just to get clout and attention. Like, and I just love how Alia was straight with it. And, like, and of course, as you said, Tom, he's like, yeah, it's not a good idea. It's like, and then, but at least what I love is that, even though Tom's like, even though Tom and Sabine agree with each other that this is not a good idea, they're like, okay, but if our daughter's gonna do it, we might as well have one of us there, and that's how it should be. Yeah, because um yeah, because as you said, that's a grown man, you know who obviously is just like spreading lies just to get some clout on his socials for his content. And I'm just like, just no, don't do that. Like, but yeah, I do appreciate that, like, both Tom you could say both Tom and Gorilla are like best fathers. They're both best fathers in that scene. They're like, because especially that they're like ready to throw down if the dude was gonna like act or anything. So that's what I do appreciate, with Tom. Because it's always good to be protective of your child because it's like, yeah, you just never know, especially with people on the internet. It's always good to be very cautious about it. And and literally, like you said, well, his name was Vince, right? The
Yeah,
dude,
Vincent.
yeah, Vincent. Like he obviously was just doing it just to get views, you know which is terrible because I'm like, oh, I was like, I was like, oh, how would you feel if someone started spreading lies about your personal life? It ain't gonna feel good, but yeah, I appreciate that from Tom. Um, if anything, like Tom and Sabine are just like great role models in how to be a parent. Like, of course, if you mix in the movie versions of them where they're actually like you know, um, more concerned about Marinette because yeah, in the show, yeah, sometimes it's questionable. Like, how are you not concerned when your daughter's like absent from school? That gets concerning because usually in real life, if your child is absent from school, they are going to call your house and like say, "Hey, your child has been like absent for a certain amount of days." But yeah, I appreciate Tom and Sabine. Okay, the next one, I really want to hear like your in-depth analysis of Emily and Gabriel. This I gotta hear, G.
Oh, I'm so glad we are getting into the real juice. Okay, so it's established that Emily, out of the two parents, is the better parent. But
Mhm.
how good of a parent is she? And I'll get into this like as I talk more. So we all know Gabriel is extremely, or was, because he's like deceased right now, extremely
Mhm.
abusive towards
Mhm.
Adrian.
Mhm.
But I feel like a fandom theory, especially in the earlier seasons of Miraculous Ladybug, so season 1 and season 2, and a bit of season 3, a lot of people theorize that Emily might not have been a saint herself. And even I have a video speculating that, yes, Emily is the lesser of the two evils out of the two parents,
Mhm.
but she is also she's a bit shady as well. There are some things I'm like, Emily, no. Um,
Mhm.
Obviously that was kind of proven false in season 6, if you've seen season 6, where Emily was, falling sick every single day. The minute she took the she used the Peacock Miraculous, she instantly became doomed, and it was just a matter of, I guess, slowly fading out of life over the course of 14 or 13 years. So that's that. Now, my issue with Emily is, even though the show desperately tries to paint her as this really kind and loving figure, which I have no doubt she is this very kind and loving figure,
Mhm.
I it makes me side eye her a little bit, because she knew that Gabriel would stop at nothing to bring her back. So you can't convince me that she wasn't aware of Gabriel's flaws to the extent that it could become a massive problem, because she
Mhm.
leaves those video messages for Natalie, and she thinks that Adrian's in good hands because Natalie is there, comforting Adrian, but Adrian wasn't in good hands. And as much as they're pushing this Natalie redemption, I'm sorry to say this, but I cannot really be convinced. I love Natalie, I love her character, but I can't really be convinced that this redemption is very earned, because Emily was trusting you to look after Adrian. You failed in that department. Yeah, you know turned a leaf or whatever, but you still aided Gabriel Agreste in his mission, and that further caused more abuse towards Adrian. So
Mhm.
really, you're also a bystander. But that Natalie aside, I don't know. I just feel like you can't. Yes, people change, and I'm not doubting that Gabriel was a good man right before Emily fell ill, and even before she became pregnant with Adrian. I'm not denying that. And yes, people do change to the point where sometimes it's completely, blindsided. You don't see when people change. But I feel like the show drops enough clues to kind of tell the audience that Emily did see the subtle changes over time. She was aware that at one point, and she knew, unfortunately, she knew she was going to die and there was, no saving her. Her one fear was that Adrian would not be in good hands. So I felt like, okay, if you decide to marry a man who has these toxic traits, has these flaws, mm, and I don't know, it's just something about it just rubs you the wrong way. So Emily, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinions as well, is not a saint.
Mhm.
And I think that's that. I do think they very much do have a lot of love for Adrian. Gabriel's love for Adrian is a very twisted and distorted definition of love, but I
Yeah.
do wholeheartedly think he does love Adrian. He just lost sight of that because his love for Emily overpowers his love for Adrian. And you could argue that once kids come into the picture, they become a priority. Whereas other people would argue that no, husband and wife trumps first, kids come after. I will, respect my wife's wishes first before I do what's best for my children. But again, that's completely up to the person or whoever we're talking to. Again, some people think that once children come into the picture, they take a priority. Sometimes you
Mhm.
have to, just kind of not ignore, but you just kind of have to put aside what your spouse says, and you have to focus on what's best for the children. Whereas others argue the opposite. It's really up for debate. But yeah, Gabriel and Emily, they have a very interesting relationship. Um, to the point where Adrian recalls, his dad being a good uh, person, being very warm and not this cold and stoic figure that he's now, grown to know.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen those videos too. I remember I watched your both your video and Smarty Pants also about like yeah, Emily is not really as saint as you believe her to be, because the show is trying to paint her as like the saint. Like even Adrian obviously has a positive has positive memories of his mom, but at the same time, it's kind of like I think there was like an I think it was Wishmaker. Remember when Adrian got hit with the
Hmm.
Maker's power? His wish is like, "Oh, I want to be sure I like my wish is that I grow up to be what my parents want me to be." And I'm like, "Huh." So I'm kind of like, did Emily, it kind of begs the question, does Emily have like these expectations of Adrian, kind of like how Gabriel has these expectations of Adrian? Because obviously we learned that, like, yeah, as you said, Gabriel has a weird, twisted love for Adrian. Like, he doesn't even treat him like he's a human. He treats him like, oh, he's a marketing strategy. I'm just like,
Hmm.
you don't see your son as human? I was like, I'm sorry. You don't do that. It's like that's not love. That is a weird, twisted way of love. Like, and it's like a form of like manipulation too. Like as you said, it's a weird, twisted version of love that he likes to say it's love, but it's like, dude, that's not love. Like literally, when Marinette had that confrontation with Gabriel, like she's like saying Adrian is a person. He is like he should have the power to choose what he wants to be. But you're like trying to like you're keeping him in this bubble and not allowing him to like figure out what he wants to do in life, right? Because literally Adrian said, "Oh, my dad always just made my parents always made the decision, especially my dad." And it's like, um, because it makes you do wonder if like I'm wondering if in any future like episodes in season 6 or onward, if we're gonna get like the other side of Emily that we have suspected or speculated that, oh, maybe she had these expectations like for Adrian too, you know? Like you kind of see where I'm like getting at, right, G?
Yes,
Because like it because like the fact that Adrian said that one line in Wishmaker, it makes me question that like, huh, like did Emily expect him to become like maybe like we don't know as of yet, because we have to wait until like future episodes come out to show any other flashbacks that did Emily expect him to go into a certain career field or something, or
that
maybe
that
like
would be interesting. Yeah, that really would be interesting because I feel like it touches upon the fact that grief can affect the way you think and affect your memory as well. Because at this moment, Adrian is actively grieving. He's grieved his mother at the beginning of the show, and he's still actively grieving his mother, of course. But now he's added on, he's grieving his father too. So sometimes grief just makes you forget certain things, especially when you have a very twisted or complicated relationship with someone you love and they suddenly die or whatever.
mm,
Um, you're so overwhelmed by grief that you kind of forget that this person was not a really great person to me. So maybe that could very much be the case where Adrian chose to remember, or I wouldn't say chose, but like his brain for his own comfort, because the brain will do whatever it needs to protect the person, right? Your brain will always stick in its comfort zone because it fears anything outside of that. So probably when Emily died or disappeared, as they keep mentioning in the show, I honestly think they keep saying disappeared in the first two seasons because they couldn't say died, and then
mhm,
the age rating thing like changed up so they were able to say died
mm,
later on. But I honestly think when Emily died, Adrian kind of, went into grief mode and decided to only remember the good moments of when she was a loving parent. So, which is why when Wishmaker happens and he's like, I just wanted what my parents wanted me to be. I don't think it's a dialogue issue. I think they generally did mean parents, plural, not just Gabriel.
mm.
So maybe, just maybe, in season 6, we might see more of Emily, maybe a different side. That would be really, really interesting to see, actually.
Mhm. Yeah, because isn't it from like maybe from like because as we know, Gabriel like wanted Adrian to go into modeling, you know,
Yes.
for his brand. Because Adrian literally said, "Oh, I was like pretty much like forced into modeling," you know. And then it makes you wonder if like Emily was like maybe wanted him to pursue a specific career path, just like how Gabriel was forcing the modeling thing onto Adrian, and Adrian didn't really have much of a choice, so it begs you to question that, like, huh? I was like, it makes you wonder if, like, maybe Adrian's mom is exactly the same way and trying to like steer him towards like a different career, you know, not modeling, but like we just don't know as of yet because like obviously we we need to see if this kind of validates in like future episodes and in other new flashbacks, because I know with Where Papas we do get a flashback, you know we do get a flashback in the beginning and at the end, if I remember correctly, right? In Where Papas in season 6. Um, I know the first flashback was in the beginning where you see Emily and Adrian just sitting in the bed, right? And
Yeah.
then I think I forgot. Do you remember the book they were reading? I'm trying to remember.
They were reading a book about, I think it was about a prince or something, and like the prince's parents or something. I can't remember the exact book. I think that was the one thing I didn't really focus on. I just focused on how it related to Emily and her parents. But they were reading a
Mm,
book about someone that lives in a faraway kingdom.
mm,
And then Adrian questioned where Emily's parents are, and she got sad. But no, you are right as well that there is a flashback towards the end of the episode, but where Adrian's a tiny bit older than what he was in the first flashback.
mm,
I think I would say he was probably around like I don't know 6 or 7 in the end flashback.
mm. Yeah, like I think like I know the first flashback, like I think like Adrian asked about his grandparents, from his mom's side. And she's like,
Hmm.
they're not really great people. And she explains it in a way where he can understand. Because obviously, you know, especially if you have young children, and then especially if you have like toxic like parents or in-laws, you have to like explain it in an age appropriate way. So I kind of like how Emily explains it to him that like they do things that make them not so good people, which I understand because he was probably what, like 5, I think, in the first flashback, I'm presuming. So, but the fact what really hits in that flashback though is that, oh, does that mean daddy doesn't love me? And she's like, where on earth would you get something like that? Because he's always out of the house. And and like I said, Adrian, like I said, here's the thing: children are smarter than you think. Like you think that they wouldn't know, but Adrian is well aware that his dad has been like away with Natalie trying to find obviously a cure for Emily's illness, right? But he catches on that his dad is like not around the house, and and the fact is like, does that mean daddy doesn't love me? I'm like, that hurts. That really hurts. And and because of the fact that Adrian already has these thoughts of like, how come daddy's not around the house? Because here's the thing, like if you're gonna have children, always find time for them. Don't always be away on work because, you know, you're practically going to be strangers. And that's literally what happened in the movie version when you think about it, right? Like, because we get more nuance in the movie version with Adrian and Gabriel. And then, like, as I said, movie Adrian's a lot better. He's got more backbone. And then he calls out his dad on his behavior. It's like, oh, oh, I was like, you want to be here for me now? Where were you when, um, when I needed someone to comfort me? You know, um, of course, of course, TV Adrian would never say that to his dad, but, obviously, because he got no backbone. But, but um, the fact is that Gabriel just was never around, you know, especially in the TV version, because because you can consider that neglect when you think about it. Like it's like child neglect, um, if anything. And the fact that Adrian is like getting these thoughts at such a young age that like, oh, like, does that mean daddy doesn't love me? I'm just like, oh my gosh, that really hurts. Like, don't ever put your children in that position to think that, like, um, that their own parents don't want anything to do with them. Like, they feel like, do they not love me? Am I like, why does he not want to spend time with me? And that's just relatable because that unfortunately happens in real life. Like there's like I kind of feel like there's just some people that shouldn't be parents, and then they don't even spend time with their children, and yeah, like Gabriel is the most horrible father, because he put his son in this position in the first place, and a parent should never do that to their children. Like I said, if you're gonna have children, spend time with them, get to know who they really are. obviously Gabriel, like, obviously since, the show wants to want pretty much confirm that Adrian's a senti monster, you could say Gabriel kind of just treats it as like, oh, you're like my little puppet that I can pull, you know, like I'm like the puppet master that controls your strings, if you know what I mean. And I kind of feel like that's what Gabriel, and as of we don't know, but I would like to theorize that maybe Emily was probably similar to Gabriel, but we just don't know that yet until we get more flashback confirmation of her actually doing that too, but just from, from their relationship before Adrian was born, you can see that they were truly in love though. Um obviously, because as like as much as I hate to admit the, the the Kagami and Felix like stage play thing they were doing to explain the story. It's so cringe. But but at the same time, at least, we can see that, Gabriel and Emily did genuinely love each other, but I'm guessing they probably just didn't have this conversation of like um of their, of how they were basically how they were going to raise Adrian, maybe, because we don't really know how their communication is, obviously, because we only get hints, like tidbits, right? Like we don't fully know if they had like a conversation of like, um if Gabriel's like, oh, Adrian's gonna be a model for my brand, and that's that, right? Like we don't have a conversation of that, right? Between Emily and Gabriel. And then if Emily's like, no, he should be like an actor or something, right? Like we don't know this, like we don't know their communication, if they have like good communication to see, oh, is this how we're going to raise our child or anything? So um until we actually get more context of the way they communicate with each other, like the only thing we can do is just theorize, and just from tidbits, from hints of like from previous episodes, you know because how would you think, do you think they would have good communication, or it's just like their communication is not that great? What do you think, G?
I I think that communication is, well, from what we can assume, is okay when it comes to very surface level discussions, but I don't really think they had any sort of difficult conversations about, certain things, because before you get married and everything, or before you get into a long-term relationship with someone that you see yourself spending your life with, I think you need to be having certain conversations before you make that commitment. And fair enough, I think Gabriel did show his commitment to Emily when, or rather, Emily showed her commitment to Gabriel when she basically, like, she didn't become poor, but she, I don't know how to word it, but like renounced her aristocracy, because she is
Mhm.
from a rich family and Gabriel isn't, which is the funny thing about this whole situation. Um, so she was willing to denounce that just to be with Gabriel, and Gabriel changed himself. So I don't know. I think there was a level of commitment, but in terms of, okay, how would raising a child be? What are we gonna do? Blah 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 blah. What's our like parenting strategy or whatever? Because they were actively planning on having kids. It's just that Emily just couldn't, because she was like, she had fertility issues. So when they did find the Peacock Miraculous and they gave birth to Adrian, and they realized that, Emily's gonna die pretty soon. I don't think they had any conversations about, like, okay, what's going to happen when I'm gone, because it's inevitable at this point. I'm going to die. So what, how are you going to raise Adrian? And she might have had those conversations, and Gabriel just didn't listen, or he forgot, or grief overpowered his mind, and like he just forgot Emily's wish. Because I do find it a bit sketchy that towards the end of season 5 he just Natalie as well also just randomly remembers that Emily left behind video messages, which like I'm like, okay, why didn't we see this in season 3?
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't think their communication was the best when it came to more deeper topics.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like from what I definitely agree. From what you explained, it's like yeah, like Emily, you could say Emily was more accepting of her fate. That like yeah, there's no way to cure me. You know, like she was willing to accept it, and you know, for all we know, like you said, she probably tried to talk to Gabriel about it, and it just like he's like, no, I can find a cure for you, like you're going to live. Like he had like this mindset that like as you said, his priority was more in curing his wife than spending time with his son, you know, which is the unfortunate like you know, unfortunate um consequence he had to suffer, that like he didn't really know his son, you know, and Emily was the one that was with her, that was with him, you know, and like you said, like Emily, like I said, I think she was just accepting her fate at this point, you know, because like obviously, Gabriel and Natalie went on like trips, you know, to find a cure for Emily, but obviously they were like failing, you know, and because of that, I kind of feel that that like it could be Emily was trying to communicate how she feels, and then Gabriel just wouldn't hear it because he's like, no, why are you accepting your fate? There is like I am gonna find the cure for you, you know, and you know, obviously like it maybe you know, I'm presuming it's like from Emily's end, you know, that she tried to initiate conversation, but Gabriel just doesn't want to listen, you know, and I'm kind of like, well, it led you to now where she's dead, you know. And then I think that's when like let's say hypothetically, if Emily tried to initiate conversation and then Gabriel is just not listening, that's probably when she made those videos to Natalie. Because obviously in the post flashback scene, you know, in Where Papa's, where Emily like sees Natalie comforting Adrian, she saw that Natalie was more willing to comfort Adrian, if you kind of know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like she's kind of like she literally said in I think in the video that Natalie watched of Emily's recording, like, you know how he is, he's so stubborn. And I'm like, yeah. And then it really comes to show that maybe, you know, there until we get some flashback confirmation, maybe, just maybe, um, like maybe she did try to initiate conversation, but because he just wasn't listening, she had to like go to last resort and like make the videos to Natalie, you know. And it really shows, you know, that like it really shows that Natalie was like, you know, probably was like the better person to like be equipped to at least be there for Adrian, because she's kind of like, oh, I was like, my husband, you know, like she probably had those thoughts. She's probably like, oh, my husband is so stubborn. He probably doesn't want to even listen to what I say. And that's terrible. Like it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder if like um because of Emily possibly accepting her fate, that's when like Gabriel just changed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's it's kind of like like I feel really bad too, cuz like if that's the case where Emily tried to initiate, okay, this is how we are like this is how this is how you are going to raise Adrian when I'm gone, right? Because you got to have that plan. You know, you got to plan that ahead of time. And obviously, because in the context of this show, Emily ended up getting sick and an illness because of the broken peacock miraculous um at the time, because obviously it's not damaged anymore because Gabriel was able to actually fix it now. But at the time when it was still broken, like it's kind of like it makes you do question that, um like it's kind of like maybe Emily is like, maybe Natalie will listen, because obviously Natalie has more empathy, you know. And the fact that when as soon as she saw Natalie comforting Adrian, she's like, okay. And then that's probably when she made the video, for all we know,
Yeah.
that if anything. And the fact that, like, I'm hoping if we get a flashback in a future episode where she's trying to communicate with Gabriel and then Gabriel is just not listening to her. And then that will really show that, like, oh, Emily was trying to communicate um how, what they're going to do when she dies, right? Because you got to have that conversation, if you have like an illness where for sure you are not going to survive, the parents um the parents have to have that conversation. If one of them goes first, this is how what we're going to do for our child, at least, because we don't have that context as of yet, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
So, because as of right now, we can say that, like, we can theorize that their communication probably wasn't that great, because I think from what we know, the only communication that I would say was like their communication was okay, was like I think it was like an evolution when Gabriel saw him and Emily when they were young, and then they were like a nighttime picnic or something, and then he shows her the peacock miraculous, and then he just asked her, "Are you sure you're ready?" And she said yes. So I would say they probably had that conversation. Hey, let's use this miraculous to um probably make a baby, right? So it's like I'm presuming they had that conversation. That's what I'm presuming just from that scene. For for the part where, like, Emily, like, supposedly just accepted her fate, you know, like, she probably tried to communicate and he just probably just wouldn't listen, and stuff. So it's so like until if we get more and just like piece everything together, that, oh, was their communication good, or was it bad, or was it all right, you know like if anything. But oh, oh, is your audio okay, Jen?
Oh, no, it's good. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. But I think, with the actual I'm hoping we get more context so that way we could actually comment if their communication was great as a couple. Because, like I said, like, unless if we know the context, all we can do is just theorize
Yeah.
as of this live stream. um, but any final thoughts on these two?
No, I think we actually kind of went deeper than I thought we would when it comes to Emily and Gabriel.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, obviously, as you said, like, Emily came from rich, like, as you said, she was like an aristocrat, right? I think.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of like, it's an interesting aspect to think about, because, like, obviously, um you know we kind of learn about, like, oh, her background, that, like, oh, she came from a wealthy family. That's like, okay. And then obviously it's one of those tropes where it's like, oh, the wealthy family doesn't approve of, like, their child's like potential partner because they don't come from rich, obviously. um but I would say, how about let's talk about okay, since season 6 is still pretty fresh so far, let's talk about Gabriel's parents first. You know, just from the episode that we were shown in Where Papa's.
Ooh, okay. Gabriel's parents seem to be very humble people. And then you
Mhm.
remember that, okay, Gabriel actually did come from a humble background before he decided to become very, what's the word, elitist.
Yeah.
Um, my only issue, and it did seem like they were genuinely like confused and hurt when Gabriel kind of cut contact with them for no apparent reason.
Mhm.
Because this whole time we were like, up until now, up until season 6, we were kind of wondering, wait, where the hell are Gabriel's parents? Are they
Mhm.
good people? Are they bad people? And this entire time, it's actually Emily's parents that were the horrible people, and Gabriel's parents that were um, great people. And then I guess the idea behind it, I guess what the writers were basically trying to go for was you become what you hate. Gabriel, I'm assuming, does not have a good relationship with Emily's parents because they didn't accept him, so that's why Emily had to give up her aristocracy or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
but with Gabriel's parents, yes, Gabriel shut them out.
Mhm.
I guess you could argue that I don't think they did enough to try and be in Adrian's life.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm being very sensitive about this because we don't know what length Gabriel would have done to kind of keep his parents out of his and his son's life. Um,
Mhm.
but just personally, if I was a grandparent, I would have at least tried a little bit more. Like, okay, let's turn up to the house. Let's try and find Adrian. Let's try and do something. But again, we don't because everything. My biggest gripe with Miraculous is a lot of things happen off screen, so we really can't assume much because we don't even have that much context clues,
Yeah.
and the context clues that we do have are very vague to the point where, like, okay, we're still piecing together missing
Mhm.
pieces from a puzzle. Um, but yeah, I think Gabriel's parents could have at least tried a bit more, especially when they knew, like, oh, they have a grandson in Paris.
Yeah.
Not even
Yeah.
like try and talk to Gabriel, be like, okay, we may not have a good relationship, but can we at least be in our grandson's life? I don't even think they were aware that Gabriel died until now, right?
Yeah.
Or am I just making things up? Because I don't remember if they actually had a conversation about that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's a little bit weird because, like, yeah, like in Where Papas, like the first time that we, like, because I think to my knowledge, I think Natalie has contact with both sets of parents, I think, because we obviously get that from, because we obviously get that with, what do you call it, with Emily's parents, right? Like literally when Natalie was like couldn't really comfort Adrian, she gets a call, right? On the cell phone.
yeah,
So it's like, what's going on? And then I'm like, wait a minute, Natalie has contact with Emily's parents? And it's like, is that the case for like Gabriel's parents then? So it makes me wonder that um maybe like because as you said, we don't really know if they tried to get in contact with their son, to see, hey, we would love to meet our grandson. Probably, like, this is just my guess until we get more context that maybe they probably tried calling and then Gabriel said, don't answer it. Probably, you know,
yeah,
because the thing is, like it could be like you said that like Gabriel pretty much became an elitist. Even though he came from humble beginnings and his parents are like the sweetest and gentle people. Like, look at them, they're very humble. Like, even though, like, Emily's father literally was like berating, oh my gosh, what is Gabriel's dad's name? I'm like blanking out on his name. Um, but literally Emily's father berates him that like, "Oh, it's not a good idea for Adrian to like grow up with you because like it's embarrassing for like, because obviously Adrian, comes from, he comes from rich, right? And it's like, "Oh, but that's going to be embarrassing for Adrian if he's raised by grandparents who run a fast food chain." So it could like from maybe I'm just presuming maybe Gabriel was like probably ashamed of his parents like job or something or roots or something. As I said, we don't really know this context, but like I'm presuming that like Gabriel might feel embarrassed, because people, as we all know, Gabriel was a humble like tailor back in the day, but because of Audrey Bourgeois, he became a world-renowned fashion designer now, you know, and the fact is that, he decided to make the conscious decision to like cut off his parents, obviously, you know. It's just like what it's implying. Like it could be he's just like ashamed, if you know what I mean. That like because literally that's what I'm presuming because obviously with like Emily's father, he's like, no, Adrian should be growing up with us because at least we're rich. I'm just like, oh wow, elitist mindset mentality are we? um but yeah, but I kind of like the way Gabriel's parents and like at least from what we've seen so far, like they seem like very nice and humble people. Like literally, like Gabriel's dad is proud of his roots. Like he's not embarrassed that like is like what's wrong with being in charge of a fast food chain? You see that as like a problem, you know? So but I love the way that they communicate. I think they have like a very loving relationship because I think Gabriel's parents aren't even married, I think. Yeah, I think they have like the conscious decision to not be married, but they're together. Like if you kind of understand what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember if they mentioned that or yeah. Yeah, I don't remember if they do mention that they're not married or it's like hinted at. Um, but yeah.
Hmm. Because like I love the relationship from what I've seen so far. Like they seem like very humble people, and that's what you should be. You should be humble about your roots. You shouldn't be embarrassed. Because like a lot of successful people start out with like humble roots. That's just reality. You know, like with the example of like I think Bill Gates, he started out in a community college and then look at him now. Made a lot of money, you know? So like and that's what I love about Gabriel's dad. Like he's not ashamed of his job. He's like humble about it. And the fact that he's proud of like of our signature dish from our fast food chain, right? Like he's so proud of it and that's what I love about it. Like you always should be humble of your roots. You should never be embarrassed that you started off with like not that much, right?
Yes.
But now let's go to the other side of the coin, Emily's parents. Oh my gosh. Um, I can definitely see where Emily was coming from, what she meant, but I think it kind of feels like it's more directed at her dad than her mom, but her mom was kind of like kind of an enabler, you could say. Like
Y
they have a very, very unbalanced, like toxic and abusive relationship, which is really sad. Like like when I was watching Where Papas, I really hated Emily's dad. The way he kept talking down to her, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I was like, this dude is a monster. like every time, like I think it was Millie, right? Like every time she tries to speak her mind, he just like shuts it down. I'm just like, what is wrong with you? We're not living in the 1700s. Like it's so like terrible. And the fact that I'm just like the fact that Emily's mom tolerated this behavior, that's just terrible.
Yeah, Emil was very abusive towards Millie, like extremely abusive. It's even implied that he was also he could have been physically abusive to her.
Mhm,
So whilst Millie is a victim, I do think, and I'm going to be very careful with wording how I word this, I do think once you have children and as a victim, you are still sort of responsible so that the the person you're abusing, oh sorry, the person that's abusing you doesn't do the same to your children. And I think she failed in that um department because, and again, I very much acknowledge that she is a victim, but to Emily and Amelie even, it's both
mhm,
of their parents that forced them to conform to things that they didn't want to conform to. Amelie was forced in a marriage to Colt, who we know is a very horrible person. She felt like she didn't have a choice. If
mhm,
Millie kind of took agency and was like, okay, like I don't know, if Millie was a little bit more had more of a stronghold or an iron grip or whatever, I do think Amelie would have been a lot more happier. Emily was more of the rebellious child. I think that's established. But Emily does say when she's talking about her parents, she's not just talking about one parent or the other. She's talking about both of them as a unit. So I do think there is like you can very much be a victim of abuse, but you can also kind of be a bystander to it as well. Each side is very valid. Emily's feelings are very valid. Why she decided to cut contact with her parents. Millie is also valid because she's kind of stuck with Emil, who's just extremely abusive, verbally
mhm,
and potentially physically as well. Um, and whilst and whilst Millie is very much valid, and she is a victim, there's no denying that she did cause, whether it directly or indirectly, she did cause a lot of harm to her kids.
yeah. Because that's the thing, like the fact that she stayed in the marriage with with a toxic and abusive partner, I think it's just really telling, because I think she's probably under the mentality that, oh, like I need to stay with him because we have two kids, right? But if your partner is toxic and abusive, like your kids are gonna catch on very fast. Like kids will be able to tell if it's a broken household, broken home, especially when like one parent is like toxic or abusive to the other. And the fact that, as I said, the fact that Millie stayed with this man, even though he was like verbally abusive, like I'm just like, I feel so bad, you know. But like the fact that she doesn't even have a voice, like she can't even voice her own opinions without like her husband just like berating her. And like I said, I hate that line that he says, yeah, like I think it was like he's like, yeah, don't speak your mind or something. I forgot how the line was said, but I'm just like, oh my gosh, just like this dude is terrible. And the fact is that, like I said, she tolerated this, and you could say she enabled this behavior because she allowed this behavior, to be present in their daughter's lives, which is terrible. Like, don't expose your children to that type of environment or that behavior. Like, so it's just very telling, like I totally get it where she like calls him out, like, oh, stop it. You love French fries. Like, I find that part funny, but the fact is like, I was like, I don't know. It's like this of like, obviously your husband's very toxic and abusive. I'm like, I don't think you should be staying with this man, in my opinion. Like, uh, yeah, because like, because here's the thing: all of us, as soon as that episode aired and we watched it, we all Miraculous fans can agree, we all hate Emil. Very, very, very terrible man. Like, I'm just like the fact that as you said, that Emily, probably already saw this behavior and she's like, you know what? I'm more than willing to give up my aristocrat status, for this man who obviously isn't, you know, which I don't blame Emily, because it's like she was probably exposed to that her entire life, and the thing is, Emily's like, I want to marry someone who's loving, who's not gonna be, um, like, who cares about my opinions, who will not like belittle me, because that's a terrible environment to grow up in, you know. And the fact that Amelie was just so obedient, I was like, oh my gosh. And the fact that Amelie, like, ended up marrying someone who's abusive, it's really sad when you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I feel like the cycle again, Miraculous is very intentional with how they portray sort of generational cycles because
Mm.
Emily's parents, and this is where we kind of go back with, how Marinette has great influences of love. So Marinette can love in a healthy way, talking aside.
Mhm.
um, but with Adrian's side of the family, his mom had abusive parents, Emily had abusive parents. Technically, even though Gabriel wasn't abusive towards Emily, Emily still married an abusive man.
Yeah.
A parent can be abusive just to the child and like not to the wife or husband.
Mhm.
So I guess you could even argue that cycle repeated. But that cycle hopefully ends with Adrian. It will
Yeah.
end with Adrian. It has ended with Adrian because he's in the most healthy relationship possible. Granted, Marinette is keeping lies and secrets from him, but that aside, Adrian is in a very healthy relationship right now that his parents and grandparents didn't quite get to be in.
Yeah, because you could also add that, like, because from that cringy stage play that, like, Felix and Kagami did in that one episode, literally Felix was abused by his dad, and the fact that I'm just like, was his mom not aware of the abuse, or she just allowed it, is like very telling. Like, remember, like, Felix said, like, when they were like, I guess, I don't know, like, acting it out. Like, literally, Felix said his dad was abusive and called him a monster. And I'm just like, and it makes me wonder about, like, Amelie. Like, was she aware that her son was being abused, or did she just allow it? Or it kind of begs you to question, right? Because we don't get like Amelie's side of it. We only see from like when Felix and Kagami were just acting out the stage play thing.
I think she was somewhat because the thing about the fun no not funny but the thing about abuse is that when when a parent is getting abused by their husband or wife, and that abuse now is transferred towards their kids, they often don't have the power to stop it. So I wholeheartedly do think Emily was aware, sorry, not Emily, Amelie was aware of Colt's abuse towards um Felix. Because again, Amelie didn't want to marry Colt. That was completely arranged.
Mhm.
So that in itself, where they were, trying to have kids and Amelie couldn't have kids. There's a very uncomfortable sort of implication behind that, which I don't think I want to go into right now. We can talk about it like probably after, because it is a very, very sensitive topic, and
Mm,
YouTube might, copyright, not copyright, but like flag it.
yeah.
Um, but if you get what I mean, like the implication behind that, Amelie was forced into an arranged marriage, and they were trying to have kids, trying to have kid with a guy that you didn't, consent to marrying. Um, so that in itself was very abusive, and then Colt became abusive towards Felix. I think she was very aware of it. Did
Mm,
she have the power to stop it? Depends what you define power, or how you define to stop it. Um,
mm,
and perhaps maybe she even, turned a blind eye towards it, or pretended that she didn't see it. Um,
mm,
but even though it's very tricky, because again, like we're shown one thing and then we're shown a completely different thing, because his Felix does love his mom, and I think he's a
yeah.
he's a mummy's boy. Um, and I don't think there's any sort of resentment towards his mom. So
Mm,
maybe she did try to defend him, and Felix is just, emotionally mature to understand that Colt is both abusive towards his mom and to himself. Because I
mm,
feel like if Amelie, sorry, was aware of this, I think Felix would have that sort of resentment towards Amelie as well. Any child naturally would. Like, oh, the
yeah.
parent that isn't abusing me, you haven't done anything to stop this abuse from the other parent. I think Felix would naturally resent his mom. But
Yeah.
maybe he just was aware that there was really nothing his mom couldn't do, until they were miraculously set free when Colt died.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's like I do agree. Like I feel like maybe Amelie did try, but obviously Colt just didn't care, And and it's just really sad that and it pretty much explains why Felix behaves the way he does too. Because he's like, yeah, I had like a father that just kept calling me a monster all the time, and it's like, yeah, and it's just really sad, and the fact that that Amelie, had to marry someone like that. Like you said, it was an arranged marriage, and she kind of just felt like, well, I want to be the obedient one, because obviously her older twin sister was the rebellious one, you know. Um, if anything. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. How about oh, okay. This one we really have to discuss. Yeah, let's talk about Andre and Audrey Bourgeois. Like, oh my gosh. Uh,
Ugh.
I have to say about this, I can see why Chloe turned out the way she did. Like, the fact that I think her mom left her and her dad for New York for like we don't know how long, you know. And then obviously, as we know, Chloe's mom ends up like like Chloe ends up having a half sister, obviously. And it's like wow. And the fact that I kind of feel like their relationship was just really sad when you think about it, because I think Andre revealed to Zoe that oh, back in the day I actually wanted to be a filmmaker, but he actually wanted to impress Audrey, so he ended up becoming the mayor. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then I'm kind of like, it makes me wonder, what did Andre see in Audrey? Is kind of the big question, because the fact that she is the more dominant one out of the two, and she could be pretty bossy, and I'm kind of like, and it makes, like I said, it makes me wonder, what did Andre see in this woman? Why did he want to change his career to a mayor just to impress someone who like is obviously not a good person. I'm going to say that. Like Audrey has like the nerve to like leave her husband and her daughter Chloe behind with like no repercussions and just comes back to Paris for like Gabriel's like obviously for Gabriel's like fashion show, you know, which I get because she was the one who got like Gabriel on his feet, you know, and become the popular and famous fashion designer in the show. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, yeah. Like I feel bad for Chloe and Zoe that the fact that they have this woman as their mother. Like, I feel bad. And the fact that Andre had like no backbone. You know, like the relationship is just so unbalanced, unfortunately.
Yeah, Audrey and Andre's relationship is probably the one that annoys me the most out of the entire uh parental relationships that we've talked about, because like you said, Andre has no backbone. I have no idea what business he was doing with Audrey Bourgeois, what he saw in her, because I really don't think Audrey was any different to how she is now. I think she's always been the same from the very
Hmm.
beginning. So why Andre fell in love with her, I am not sure.
Yeah.
Probably just a humiliation thing that he. I don't even want to get into that.
Yeah.
But it's just, yeah, that relationship annoys me a lot because we often fault Audrey for how Chloe turned out, but I honestly think Andre deserves just as much heat. In fact, even
Hmm.
more,
Hmm.
because you
Yeah.
deliberately married someone that would probably not be fit to be a mother.
Hmm.
Because if she's abusive to you, she was 100% going to be abusive towards your children. That's just a fact. And I'm sorry, but some people need to be very careful of who they marry. Yes, again, I acknowledge people can change, but when the obvious red flags are there,
Hmm.
you like your child can't pick their parents, but you can pick your partner. So make sure you pick right so you don't bring an innocent child into the world and traumatize them. Like
Hmm.
that's why, as much as I don't like Chloe, and she should be called out for some of her like behavior, at the end of the day, I can't villainize a girl who was practically set up from the very beginning because her parents just made stupid choices.
Hmm.
And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Andre just annoys me so much. And I was watching Smarty Pants' video, and he was talking about how like he doesn't feel bad for Andre at all because like just grow a spine, grow a backbone. Stop pretending
Hmm.
as if Audrey is fully to blame when you're also
Yeah.
to blame as well.
Yeah, like yeah, I definitely agree. Like it's technically they're like both Audrey and Andre are like on equal grounds of like yeah, they're both the reason why Chloe turned out the way she did because like the fact is that the fact that um Audrey left for like for God knows how long, right? To New York and then like Andre's like, I'm just gonna spoil my daughter. No, don't do that. You gotta raise her with some morals and how to be a good person. You don't spoil her with every little thing. Like because you don't do that. You know, that's not how to be a parent. You need to like teach your child some morals, you know, what's right and what's wrong. You know, obviously that's why Chloe didn't care when she was bullying people, especially Marinette, you know? And the fact, like I said, what makes it even worse is that Andre is like pretty much an enabler when you think about it. He is an enabler because like whenever Chloe demands, Daddy, you know, right? Like she always complains to her dad about like someone that's like, you know, being mean to her, even though she's the one that's doing it, you know? And then he just like enables the behavior and he just thinks his daughter is not lying. I'm just like, no, you need to like, You need to know the full picture. You need to teach her what she's doing is not okay, you know. And like I said, I do agree. Like both Audrey and Andre are just terrible. And do you want to know what makes it even worse with Audrey?
What?
The fact the fact is that like what's weird about it, like in that like in the redemption quote unquote thing, with Chloe, like Chloe literally asked her mom, "How come you don't love me?" Audrey has like no answer to that question, which is terrible. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, you don't even have, like, like, don't ever put your child in the position to ask you, "How come you don't love me?" That is terrible. Very terrible for a child to ask their parent that question. And the fact that Audrey was stuttering and didn't even have an answer to that question, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I'm just like, and I'm like, no wonder Chloe turned out the way she did. Like, it's so terrible, like her mom is just like, I don't know, her mom is just like so toxic and so dismissive. Like, and another moment that I hated of Audrey is that when Chloe is like complaining to her mom about Zoe and Marinette, right? Which episode it was, you know? And then Audrey comes down the stairs and then she calls Chloe Zoe. And then Chloe has to correct her and says, "I'm not Zoe, it's me, Chloe." And she's like, "Chloe, Zoe." And she's like, "Stop confusing me." I'm just like, are you kidding me? I'm just like, and I'm kind of like, why do you name your daughters like names that rhyme, woman? Like, are you kidding me? Like, like that's so terrible. Like, that's even worse when your parent, when a parent like her just doesn't even remember your name. Like, are you kidding me? like, like I felt so bad. Like I feel so bad that Chloe turned out the way she did though. Like, yeah, both Andre and Audrey are just equally bad, you know. Andre being like having no backbone and he practically like was an enabler when you think about it. He was an enabler and then I guess in season 5 he's like, "Oh, Chloe, I should discipline you." I'm like, "You should have done that a long time ago, man." Like, because when you think about it, Chloe's already like far gone, because of her behavior, and it's like, oh my gosh, like it's so terrible with like Chloe's like parents. It's like, my gosh. um, ooh, okay. How about let's talk about Nathaniel's parents. Like, I want to know your thoughts on that. I'm pretty sure you've seen The Ruler, right?
I have seen the
Me
ruler. I just haven't reacted to it. I watched it, kind of forgot a bit about it, so I'm gonna like read, like do a full on analysis and reaction to it. But from what I've seen, Nathaniel's parents, I I got what they were doing with Nathaniel's parents. I truly did. I do, however, think that it was just kind of a repeat of what we've already seen. It reminds me a lot of like Gabriel and Emily, just like a more not watered down, but a less aggressive version of them, especially Gabriel, because Nathaniel's mom is very controlling. I think we can all agree on that. She's very controlling, and the entire episode was just I guess an allegory or a
Mm,
metaphor for homophobia and just not accepting your child for who they are.
mhm,
I think it was very smart, like how they wrote the episode. It was very, very clever.
mm,
um So yeah, she was just trying to control Nathaniel's life and kind of mold him into this vision she has for him, but he clearly doesn't agree with it. And the dad is just kind of really passive and just doesn't do much, which is okay. Like that is very annoying. It's very annoying when a parent has the power to do something, but
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, and that puts the kid at harm. So
Mm-hmm.
I do appreciate that Nathaniel's mum eventually accepted Nathaniel. I think they would have they that was the natural conclusion to the episode. Because I don't think they plan on doing more episodes on Nathaniel. I think season 6 they're just trying to, one and done on each character that we haven't really um seen much of.
Mm-hmm.
But the damage is still done, like, okay, at the end of the day, Nathaniel still felt like he had to hide a huge significance of himself
Yeah.
away from his parents. And I don't think that sort of thing goes away. It sticks with the kid, even when the parent does apologize and acknowledge their faults. But that trauma, that resentment is still there, and it will take a lot more than an apology to kind of get over it. If you ever really do get over it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like when I was watching that episode, I'm just like, oh my gosh. I was like, because it's like from what I've noticed, like Nathaniel's dad is very accepting of it because he's like, wow, you're very talented. But then when his wife comes in, like his demeanor just like changes. It's kind of like he's afraid of her or something or her reaction.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, Li yeah, like, it's very tough, like the fact that he's kinda like, as you said, he is passive, but you could say he's passive because he's afraid of his wife and how she is going to react, you know, so that's definitely a tough one because when you have, like, a parent that's more dominant than the other, and then, like and if the other tries to defend, their child from the other parent, like they might get into like an argument, and that tends to be the case at times. So I think maybe like Nathaniel's dad is more like, I want to keep the peace. So like which is really sad, because it's like that's hard, because he knows his wife is very stern and like and has like these expectations for Nathaniel, which is really sad. Um, but I think at least by the end of the episode, where at least his wife is like accepting of his passion, at least, because I think I forgot. I think his mom was expecting Nathaniel to do something else, right? Trying to remember.
Yeah, yeah, again, I need to rewatch the episode and properly like react to it because I skimmed through it. So I technically haven't watched it. I just know the main idea behind it. Um, but it wasn't that they weren't approving of Nathaniel's art. It was just the type of art he was drawing. They felt like like writing comics just wasn't a good use of talent, which is kind of crazy because it takes a lot to write comics.
Hmm.
Nathaniel's the artist, right? And Mark is the writer.
Yeah.
Okay, I always get them confused sometimes. Yeah, so they just didn't approve of comics, so I think the mom was just trying to push onto Nathaniel, like, can you just do another form of art, like, I don't know, paintings or sculptures or whatever. Well, art is art. Like,
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter. And again, it takes a lot of effort to draw comics, to write comics as well. Like, that is an insane amount of talent.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we all know it's an allegory for, like, homophobia. Okay, don't be attracted to men. You need
Mm-hmm.
to be straight, blah blah blah. Like, that's not the traditional, quote unquote, traditional way to go. So art was like a metaphor for the underlying subtext behind that,
Mm-hmm.
which I think was very smart on the writer's part.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but even
Yeah.
when without the subtext, if we just ignore, like, not ignore, but if we like just take it as surface level in the context of just art without the subtext, it's still kind
Mm-hmm.
of a horrible thing for a parent to kind of do. Like, imagine spending hours upon hours upon hours creating a passion project, something that you're really, really good at. And your mom is like, that's not a valid form of art. That's not real art. Change it or do something meaningful. Or I'm going to forbid you from doing it. It's like if I didn't pursue film production or screenwriting because my mother doesn't approve of it and she prefers to go down a traditional route. Like, that is a very horrible thing for a parent to do. Um, so yeah, that in itself is very sort of abusive and controlling. Um,
Mm,
so yeah, Nathaniel's parents are very, very strange for that.
mhm. I think what was also ironic, I think like when that episode came out, people are like, "Wait, why does Nathaniel's dad look like the dude from Megamind?" And then I'm like, "Wait a minute, wait a minute." I'm like, I was like, "Wait, is that true?" And then I looked at the dude that was supposed to be Megamind's new enemy, the hero. I'm just like, "Oh, I'm like, oh my gosh, they do look similar." Which is ironic in itself, but that's besides the point. That's just what people were like saying when that episode came out. um, but I would say let's have the last two be like Kagami's mom and Julika and Luca's um mom and dad, Jagged and Anarka. Yeah. I think we should end it off on those two.
Okay, so Kagami's mom is basically a replica of Gabriel. Some might argue she's worse than Gabriel.
Mhm.
I don't really think we should really talk about like abusive parents in terms of who's worse or who's better because abuse can't be measured.
Mhm.
It's very much, abuse is abuse, right?
Mhm.
But personally, I honestly just think like Kagami's mother, so I think her name is Tomo or Tomoe,
Yeah.
is exactly the same as Gabriel. That's probably why they're partners. Like, I honestly don't see any difference between them. They're both after the miraculous for whatever reason that Tomo is after the miraculous. That's never really been specified, which is kind of crazy. You would think that we would find out eventually what particularly she wants the miraculous for.
Mhm.
She has this idea of a perfect image for her daughter, and her daughter doesn't even feel comfortable in talking to her as a parent. It's very stoic, like the way Kagami talks to her mother. It feels very formal, kind of like how Adrian says yes father. It's like, oh, you're talking to a business person, you're not talking to a parent.
Mhm.
um which is a weird dynamic to have, and it raises a lot of red flags. So yeah, I don't like Tomoe. I don't know why she was let off scot-free at the end of season 5. I think that still annoys me till this day that
Mhm.
Marinette just didn't report her or anything. But then again, I guess you could argue that if she let Gabriel off the hook and lied to protect Adrian's feelings or whatever, then I guess she had to kind of do the same for Kagami as well, because you can't pick and choose. If you're going to give one treatment to one person, you kind of have to be fair and give it to the other person.
Yeah.
Um, so that's Kagami and her mother. I really don't like Tomo at all. She's a horrible human being. I think we all can agree on that.
Yeah. Yeah, like she was just as equally as controlling to Kagami just as Gabriel was to Adrian, you know? So yeah, like very, very terrible mother. I'll say that because she has like high expectations, just like Gabriel has high expectations for Adrian. Because literally, the worst thing that Gabriel and Tomoe did is like when they hear that Adrian is interested in Marinette, they're literally like both of them were like so against this, and like Gabriel's like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna let you see Marinette. I'm like, it's like, and I said another reason to hate you, Gabriel, and everything. And Tomoe is just as bad though too. So, um, but let's end it off with Jagged Stone and Anarka. I want to know your thoughts on them.
Okay, they are also a weird couple, but I don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. I do think it was weird that um Anaka never told Luca and Julika about their father. Granted, I think Jagged Stone did want it to be a secret. He just wanted to be a deadbeat father, I guess. But it is implied and I think outright stated that Luca has asked his mother multiple times who his father is, and she just kind of didn't answer him, and I think that is very horrible in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I guess you could also argue that maybe Jagged didn't ask Anaka to keep the secret, and Anaka was just, when like parents have a conflict and then they forget that their kids are important and will be affected by this, so they let their personal conflict with each other affect the kids. I
Mm-hmm.
think that is what happened with um Arnica and Jagged. She was like, I don't want anything to do with you, stay away. And she kind of forgot, like, hey, just because me and Jagged didn't work out, that doesn't mean he can't have a relationship with his son and daughter. So I think she did kind of let that spite um cloud her judgment, cloud her mind, and she sort of robbed Julika and Luca of a relationship with her dad. But at the same time, I do think Jagged didn't care enough to be a father. He spent 15 years pretending not to know his kids, pretending that they didn't exist. And it wasn't until Luca and Akumatai's version of Luca forced him to tell the truth. If that wasn't the case, I wholeheartedly think Jaggerstone would have gone his entire life just not knowing or caring about his kids at all. Like he was so guilt free. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like yes, deadbeat parents exist, absent parents exist, but there's always that sort of guilt, no matter how well you mask it. And I just don't think Jagged cared enough. But
Mm-hmm.
to be objective, I do think when the truth was out, I do think he did try his best. Um,
Yeah.
he tried his best, especially with Luca and even with Julika as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they're bad. I think they're
Yeah.
strange and they have their flaws, and they've actively overcome those flaws. And I do appreciate the episode. I think it's Crocodile. We're like, okay, Jagged is now in Luca and Julika's life. That doesn't mean Arnica and Jagged are going to automatically be besties and get along. Sometimes when parents divorce, they don't end on good terms and they end on bad terms. That's okay. I think people forget that, or people think that it has to be one way or another. Yeah, we have kids, but we don't have to be on good terms at all. We just have to be civil enough so that our kids can get the best out of both of us. But I do
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that they did try to work through it and try to be respectful of each other, because yeah, there whatever happened between them, I don't remember why they ended up on a bad note, and why they broke up and divorced or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I know it is mentioned, I think in one, I think it's Desperado. Yeah, it's implied in Desperado or something.
Yeah.
Um, But I do appreciate that by the end of Crocodile in season 4, it's Julika that tells them, like, hey, like, I hate it when you guys fight. She like says something along those lines. So they
Mm-hmm.
work to try and be sort of civil. You don't have to like each other, you just have to have some sort of mutual respect for the greater good of the kids.
Yeah, exactly. Like I actually like the representation of like learning how to learning how to be civil with each other because even though you might have like you don't see eye to eye with each other and whatever conflict you have, it's like but you can try to be the best co-parents you can be though. Because that happens in real life because sometimes conflicts between like two people, like parents, of the children and then and like I said, you don't ever want to put your children in the middle of that conflict, because children should never ever be stuck in the parents like conflict at all, but the fact that like, Julika has to like tell them, "Hey, like you don't have to like each other." It's like I get it. There's like, your past with each other is like, you have you're like it's not really that great, but it's like, hey, at least try to get along, for our birthday. Because in Crocodile, that's literally the episode with Julika and Luca's birthday, right? And yeah, like that's the worst time to be bringing up your past conflict on your children's birthday, man. That's the worst timing to be doing that. Um, and the fact that it's Julika that calls them out, it's like, hey, like, don't argue. It's our birthday today. Well, she doesn't say it like that, but she's kind of like, hey, this is not the right time. At least be civil with each other, you know? and like I said, it's a slow process because we don't know how long that they haven't been together and this past conflict that still affects Anarka and Jagged, obviously. But at least what I love is that even though like Jagged is trying to make it up to his kids now, it's like even though it took him like a lot of years, to make it up to them, you know. The fact that he literally th- like I know like I kind of like how like um I think even with the moment when Luca decides to like yeah, with the horrible writing of writing in season 5 where it's like it's a bad idea for me to stay here because um Monarch knows that I know the identities of Ladybug and Cat. I'm just like, okay. Yeah. But Jagged actually takes the responsibility and then he's like, yeah, it's like I was like, I'll be there with Gup. At least he wants to be there for his kids now, which I think is a powerful lesson. Because there's some absent parents that do come back into their children's life where they actually want to be in their children's life without any like malicious intent or anything. And I think that's like a good representation. Like it's slowly being worked on. It's like it's not gonna happen overnight where a narc gives him, obviously, but at least what I love is that it's some progress where at least Jagged is allowed to at least get to know his kids, right?
Right.
And that's what I love. Like you could say Jagged is better than Audrey. Like Audrey hasn't even changed at all. Like she hasn't even changed the moment she left Chloe. And then when she came back, it's like, yeah, she's still the same person. She didn't even like evolve or change. Meanwhile, with Jagged, yeah, sure he may be snarky at times, but then, he actually had some guilt, and then he's like, you know what? I actually want to get to know my kids. He's actually taking the time and effort because he knows Anarka still hates him, obviously. But he's like, I want to be civil with you. This is my son and my daughter with you, but we got to be civil for our children. And it's a powerful lesson. It's the best way to like learn to co-parent because I think Anarka was like a single mom. And then like, and then like I guess like I don't know how old is Julika and Luca because apparently they're twins.
There,
um.
so Julika repeated a year, so she's technically 16 because she failed the year, so she's technically older than the rest of the class.
Oh.
So Luca and Julika are 15 or 16.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like sure that took him like maybe like probably 16 years, but at least he wants to be there for his kids now. And I kind of like that he was actually inspired by his son, I think, right? Wasn't it that like he said he ripped out his contract with Bob?
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, I decided to rip up my contract because I was inspired by my son. And yeah, and Bob is pretty much a jerk. um so the fact that I hopefully we get to see more progress, because eventually, like eventually, hopefully, Anarka can forgive Jagged, but it's like a slow process, and I like that it's very realistic in that aspect in the show, where it's like obviously something happened between the two of them, and then Anarka became a single mom, and then like, when the truth came to light that Jagged was well aware that Luca was his son and Julika was his daughter, obviously he's like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna step up and try to be the father that I'm supposed to be for them. And I like that. It's like it's a slow process, but I love how they are showcasing that because it doesn't take an overnight thing for like a Narca to forgive him. That's gonna take time, and I like that they do that. Any final thoughts on Jagged and Anarka?
Um, no, I think we touched upon everything.
Wonderful. Yes, and unfortunately, we will have to end this episode, but this was such a great way to deep dive into the different parental relationships in Miraculous. I feel like a lot of people don't dive into this, unless if you watch like, obvious like videos that tackle into deep dives, obviously. But this was a lot of fun, G. I always love doing these episodes with you.
Me too.
Yeah, like it's so interesting to do this. These Lucky Charm podcasts and going to deep dives with you. And of course, I'm going to announce this coming Monday, August 18th at 5 p.m. PT, 8 p.m. ET is a catch up with Leah Twitter space. So if you want to catch up with me since my 2 month hiatus, here's your chance to chat with me. Um, if you want to just ask me questions, about my podcasts or um or what I did this summer, here's your chance, of course, obviously. And then of course on August 19th at 5 p.m. PT, 8 p.m. ET is the next Team Serenity, where we are going to be reviewing K-pop Demon Hunters. So,
Ooh.
Andrew HBA, Doom the Mean Queen, and we will be discussing our thoughts on the anime movie. For those who haven't watched it, please do. This movie is amazing. It's still number one on Netflix, so please go support the movie. And yeah, and be sure to look don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on that bell notifications for upcoming live streams and video content. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in and stay tuned for upcoming live streams and Twitter spaces. So, hope to see you guys in the next live stream. Have a nice day, everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.